For decades, sailors and conspiracy theorists whispered about a secret city in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They spoke of a massive, illuminated structure rising from the waves, a fortress of steel and lights where no island appeared on any map. They were wrong, but they were also terrifyingly close to the truth. There was a structure out there, floating 1,500 miles northwest of Hawaii, and inside its belly was a hidden industrial cathedral built for a single, impossible purpose. It wasn't a city for people, it was a tomb for a leviathan. This is the story of the most ambitious engineering feat of the Cold War, involving a fake billionaire, a stolen submarine, and a mechanical claw the size of an apartment building. It is the story of how the CIA tried to steal a nuclear weapon from the bottom of the ocean by building a fake history to cover it up. Welcome to Shadowworks. The year is 1968, the height of the Cold War, and the world is a chessboard where the pieces are made of nuclear fire. The Soviet Union has a new piece on the board, the Project 629A submarine, known to NATO as the Gulf II class. It is a diesel-electric dinosaur compared to modern nuclear subs, but it carries a weapon that terrifies the Pentagon. 3 R-21 liquid-fueled ballistic missiles sit in the massive hump behind the conning tower, each carrying a 1-megaton warhead. In February 1968, a specific Gulf II submarine, hull number K-129, slips out of the Soviet naval base at Petropavlovsk. It carries 98 sailors, but the ship is plagued by mechanical issues and an exhausted crew. Midway through its patrol in the Northeast Pacific, K-129 misses a scheduled radio check-in. Silence follows. Then a second missed check-in confirms the worst. The Soviet Navy panics. By March, the Pacific Ocean is swarming with Soviet destroyers and reconnaissance aircraft in one of the largest naval search operations in history. For 2 months, they scour the ocean for oil slicks or distress beacons. They find nothing. Eventually, the Soviet fleet turns around, declaring K-129 lost with all hands. They assumed the ocean had swallowed their secrets forever, but they made a mistake. They assumed the ocean was silent. The United States Navy had been listening with a secret network of hydrophones known as SOSUS. On March 8th, sensors picked up a bang, followed by the sickening crunch of a pressure hull imploding. By triangulating the sound, American intelligence knew exactly where K-129 had died. While the Soviets searched thousands of square miles, the U.S. Navy knew the grave was a pinpoint 1,500 miles northwest of Hawaii. The depth was 16,500 feet, which is 3 miles straight down. Knowing where it is and seeing it are two different things, so the Navy sends its own ghost, the USS Halibut. The Halibut was a special operations submarine equipped with a remote-controlled camera sled nicknamed the Fish. Lowering the sled on miles of cable was like trying to lower a toaster into a chimney from a helicopter in a hurricane. But they found it. The wreckage of K-129 lay on the abyssal plain, a shattered treasure trove of intelligence. The photos revealed that the critical sections, including the codebooks and missile tubes, were still intact. If the United States could recover these items, they would possess the cryptographic keys to decode every message the Soviet Navy sent. It would be the greatest intelligence coup since the Enigma machine. But there was a 3-mile-deep problem. At 16,500 feet, the pressure is nearly 8,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush a pickup truck into the size of a soda can. No diver could go there, and no submarine could tow it. The Navy engineers looked at the problem and said it was impossible. To lift a 2,000-ton chunk of steel from that depth would require a cable so heavy it would snap under its own weight. The Navy gave up, believing physics protected the Soviet secrets. But the CIA doesn't obey the laws of physics. They obey the laws of budget. They established a special task force with the code name Project Azorian. They approached the problem not as sailors, but as drillers, turning to the offshore oil industry. Engineers at a company called Global Marine proposed something insane. They wouldn't use cables. They would use rigid, high-strength steel pipes screwed together in 60-foot sections. They would build a ship that was essentially a floating oil derrick to lower a giant claw 3 miles down. The claw would gently grasp the submarine, and the ship would hydraulically lift the entire string back to the surface. It was a brilliant plan, but it was impossible to hide. You cannot build a 600-foot ship with a giant derrick in a public shipyard without someone asking questions. If the Soviets found out, they would park a destroyer over the site and end the operation. The CIA needed a cover story so big and expensive that everyone would believe it. Enter Howard Hughes, the eccentric aviation tycoon and recluse. The CIA made a deal. They would pay for everything, and Hughes would take the credit. The cover story was deep-sea mining for manganese nodules, valuable rocks found on the ocean floor. It was the perfect lie because it explained the ship's strange appearance and its secrecy. In 1972, the Hughes Glomar Explorer was launched, and the media called it a marvel of capitalism. But the real marvel was hidden inside the hull. The center of the ship was dominated by a massive internal docking bay called the moon pool. This cavern was 199 feet long and 65 feet high, open to the sea at the bottom but sealable by massive gates. This was the secret city designed to hide the prize. The plan was to lift the submarine inside the hull, close the gates, and pump the water out. CIA scientists would then dissect the Soviet submarine in a dry, pressurized laboratory hidden from the world. Hanging inside the moon pool was Clementine, the 2,000-ton capture vehicle with hydraulic claws. To keep the ship steady, they used a classified system called automatic station keeping. Using sonar and thrusters, the ship could hold its position within a few feet, even in a storm. The derrick tower sat on giant gimbals, allowing it to remain vertical while the ship rolled in the waves. On July 4, 1974, the Glomar Explorer arrived at the target site, and the heist was on. The operation was a nightmare of slow-motion tension, lowering pipes 60 feet at a time. When the claw finally reached the bottom, the cameras confirmed the target. The hydraulic fingers dug into the seabed under the hull, and capture was confirmed. They began to lift, slowly hauling the prize from the darkness. For days, the winch groaned, pulling the submarine up to 6,000 feet. At 9,000 feet, the CIA agents were already celebrating their victory. But K-129 had one last curse to deliver. The hull had been structurally compromised during the crash in 1968. As the claw gripped it, the stress became too much, and a sickening screech of tearing metal vibrated through the ship. 2/3 of the submarine broke off and tumbled back into the abyss. The missile tubes and code room were gone, shattering into dust on the seafloor. They were left with only the front 38 feet of the submarine, the nose cone. They had no choice but to haul the remaining piece into the moon pool and close the gates. When the water was pumped out, the CIA teams descended into the city to see what they had caught. It wasn't the intelligence bonanza they wanted, but they did recover 2 nuclear torpedoes. And they found something else, 6 bodies. 6 Soviet sailors who had died in the darkness were now lying in a CIA ship. In a remarkable moment of respect, the CIA gave these men a formal military burial at sea. They read the service in Russian and English, played the Soviet anthem, and filmed it all. The CIA planned to go back for the rest of the sub, but secrets are harder to keep than submarines. Thieves broke into Howard Hughes's office and found documents linking him to the CIA. The story leaked, and journalist Jack Anderson broke the news on national television. The cover was blown, and the Soviet Navy swarmed the site, making a return mission impossible. When reporters asked the CIA to confirm the story, the agency invented the famous Glomar response. "We can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the materials requested." Project Azorian cost the American taxpayers $800 million, which is nearly $5 billion today. Critics called it a failure, but the technology it created revolutionized the offshore oil industry. Legally, it proved that the ocean floor was the Wild West. If you can reach it, you can take it. Somewhere in the Pacific, the rest of K-129 still lies in the mud, its missiles slowly corroding. The undersea city inside the Glomar Explorer is gone, scrapped years ago. But the operation proved that there is nowhere on Earth you can hide from the shadow works. Join us next time as we uncover Project Iceworm, the secret nuclear city built inside a glacier. Click here to watch The City Under the Ice and subscribe for more declassified history. This is Shadowworks. Clear your baffles.